Are we free to the world now, Paul? Okay, in which case, if we're now live, firstly, I welcome you to this festive Christmas Town Centre Events Committee meeting, and I'm very impressed with the efforts people have made, and I had nothing to wear, so I brought a tree. Which the joke is now old because we've already done that one. But it's nice to see such a plethora of colour. And if I don't forget, I wish you all a happy Christmas, a new year, and a successful and healthy 2021. If I don't get a chance to say it again at the end of the meeting,
I think you will.
I'll say something, won't I, Tell?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but
I believe I have a haircut, mate. This fit.
You did you?
Yeah.
It fits very well, Ted. Well, I suppose we ought to move on with the agenda. In which case, apologies for absence.
No apologies for absence.
In which case, decorations for interest on the agenda. I hope we have got interest on the agenda, but interest in the agenda. There's nobody got any prejudicial issues. Right, the minutes of the last meeting. Are you happy with those minutes?
Yep.
Can we agree them as a record? Thank you very much. Action list is item 4. Any concerns on the action list? Most of it is pretty much on the agenda, but you do need to look at it for a minute before we move forward.
Just one thing, Robin. With regards to item 1 on the action list, I'm just inquiring as to whether the people listed have been contacted to save the date in their diary, because these people tend to have diaries booked out well in advance, and I'm hoping that they will have been already contacted to get the date in their diary.
Good question. I'll have to refer. I don't do that clearly. I'll refer that to Amanda.
Okay, no, they haven't been contacted yet. That's something I'm going to be working on before we finish for Christmas.
Well, it is 2021 in May. I think that's enough time. I think you know, that will be done.
I think the sooner the better.
Anything else you're concerned about, John?
Just the sooner the better. These people have diaries booked up years in advance. I knew that when I was mayor, and therefore it's critical that we get in touch with them as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'll do that before we finish.
That date could be the crossover period between different people as well. Where it may be the old person or the new person. So if we just send it to the relevant offices, they'll deal with it.
The Lord Lieutenant crosses over in March.
Yeah.
Lord Lieutenant. They've got a new Lord Lieutenant, but the Sheriff crosses over in March.
Are they going to be following the civic list? Because
sorry, say it again, Robin.
I suppose just as a point of information, the civic list, we're quite at the front of it, and now with Buckinghamshire Council being the new council in the civic list, they'll be at the back because it goes by age of council, not political responsibility. So that'll be interesting to see how that works out for the mayor events. But no, that should be done. Needless to say, anything else on the action list?
Robin, we do have a member of the public present.
We have, in which case I should have asked for, we'll go back and do that. I didn't know we had a member of the public. Do they wish to speak? We can go back and do public session again now.
Hello, it's only me, Andy Savage.
Hello, Andy. You got anything you want to raise, Andy?
No, it was. I was invited to this meeting on the understanding that it was the Green Committee.
No, this is the Events Committee.
That's Monday.
That's entirely my fault, Andy. I have a confession to make. I've just gone back through my emails and I've realised I've sent you the wrong date. I've sent you this Monday.
I shall dip out.
Well, thank you, Andy. It was lovely to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Have fun. Bye.
Andy.
You take care. Okay, well, that was a strange one. But we obviously, Andy, we'll see Andy next week at the Environment. In which case we move on to item 5, which is the action discussions of COVID update from the town clerk. I believe he's going to be doing that. The deputy town clerk's not here.
Yes, we're doing to record apologies from the deputy town clerk. I haven't got anything to add on this item that's not already going to come up somewhere else on the agenda.
Are members happy to note that?
Yeah.
Okay, in which case we'll move on to item 6, which is Buckingham in Bloom. There is a report which has been recommended by Amanda. Do you want to take us through that report before we agree the recommendations, hopefully? Amanda?
You have to unmute, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, we didn't do Buckingham in Bloom last year as we were giving it a rest, but Terry and I have been saying throughout the year that the weather was just absolutely perfect, and lots of people got out in their gardens, and also there were lots of people that hadn't been out and done stuff in the garden before that have now got into gardening, and we'd like to go ahead and do Buckingham in Bloom again next year. It would be basically the same as we've done in the past, but I've recommended that we include a judge from either Preston Bizzett Nursery or Buckingham Garden Centre, as we use just councillors at the moment. And that, because we would have best garden, best basket and best community garden, and that we then choose an overall winner from the 3 groups, so that we have just one winner to present the cup to, just to liven it up a little bit more.
Well, thank you for that. Before we go to now, I'll ask, as Terry's been quite a commander on this event, I'll ask what Terry's thoughts are before we go to the committee.
Yes, I'm happy with that, Robin. I just query 1.2 about having someone from Preston Bizzett Professional or the Buckingham Garden Centre, on the basis of usually 4 of us go around to judge, and we're all amateurs. Whether it would be intimidating for us if he or she was to say something and we wanted to say something else, thinking, well, they're the expert in that. What, if it's all right with everybody and Amanda, what I'd like to propose is that we continue with the 4 councillors, but we've got there'd be 4 groups of winners, or 4 winners, and then get either Pete Richardson or someone from Buckingham Garden Centre to actually judge the 4 that we said are the finalists, and then he could pick the best one to give the cup to, but leave the judging to get to that stage to the councillors. I mean, you've got the mayor on there. Well, Geraldine normally comes round anyway, but I'd like to propose that amendment to that 1.2.
Is that seconded?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. Are we happy? Any other comments on that before we agree amended? Councillor Margaret Gately.
No, I was just putting my thumb up to say I agreed.
Oh, it's a lovely thumb. It was a lovely thumb. In which case, are we happy to agree that amended?
Yep, agreed. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Just to say, Chairman, obviously, you know, the cup belongs to the chap that lives behind me. I'll make sure we get the cup back from him and get it cleaned up.
Well done, Terry.
Well, the missus will.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I can't get the brasso out. I think that's what he used to use years ago. Although they think that doesn't do any good.
It is silver finger. Thank you.
Silver finger. Oh, right. Okay. Obviously, brasso isn't right anymore. Okay, with that, then we'll move on to item 7, which the town clerk's going to talk about. This is the community board funding.
Thank you, Chairman. So this proposal was discussed by the Economic Development Working Group and also by the Community Board's Economic Recovery Subgroup. Discussions around what could be done to support businesses as we reopen coming up to Christmas. What we all came up with was the project to get some bunting printed out, which would go in all the shops in the town with a kind of all wrapped up Buckingham branding, and do some posters and leaflets and run a raffle where every time you shop you get a ticket which goes into the raffle, and also put up a selfie board in the middle of town, so a big poster that you can get your picture taken with a selfie and post it onto Instagram to encourage other people how lovely it's coming to town. So we quickly put a bid in for that, and it was the funding was awarded. So this is for the councillors to agree to accept that funding. So we can't change the proposal at this stage, but we can accept the funding, which means Jeremy can accept it and we can spend money.
Yeah, just to answer Councillor Gately's question, we did do agenda item 5, Margaret. It was most of it's throughout the agenda. The COVID update, most of it's within the agenda. But thank you for prompting me. We did discuss that. We just bounced over it fairly quickly. Is that okay? Or was there something you particularly wanted to raise, Councillor Gately?
No, I got slightly distracted because all my pictures went haywire. So I must have, while I was trying to sort that out, I must have missed what was said. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I wanted to come back to you in case there was something you needed to say. That's what's more important. So going back to the report that the town clerk's given us, are we happy to proceed with that report as it is, unamended? And we'll come back with a further update in the next meeting or the new year, whichever's sooner.
Yeah.
Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Right, we'll move on to item 8. This is something which has come back to us from the resource committee, which was proposed by Councillor Smith, who's not on this committee, and Councillor Donoghue. This is to form a subgroup looking at disability access in the town and merry matters like that. I'm quite happy for Councillor Donoghue to speak on this first before we discuss it.
I don't really have anything to say, Chairman, because I didn't know that Mike wasn't going to be here to talk about it. So it is as it reads. We set up a working group to liaise with Access for All, because if we're going to be doing our own things from now on, then it's important that we have that communication going back and forth with our only disability or access group in Buckingham.
Yeah, I think it was that Councillor Smith probably didn't realise at the meeting that though it could be recommended, it was a responsibility under this committee because it's to do with the town and that. But are we happy with that recommendation, and the letters will be sent out, and in the new year we can start moving this forward? Councillor Strain-Clark.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very happy with it. Yes, we really need representation, from the council and also from the Access for All group, who will actually be able to also contact people in other groups with all sorts of disabilities, because it's not just a matter of getting up a step to get into something, of course, because there are people with Alzheimer's. I know, there can be real problems for people finding their way around the town and so on. So yes, I'm very happy for that.
Would it be advisable that we agree tonight that we'll send out invites to all the councillors on the town council? Obviously, Councillor Smith, who recommended this, isn't a member of this committee, and other members of the council, and different organisations that we cooperate with, be them environmental groups, Buckingham Society, or whoever, especially the Access for All group, to try and get a broader group of people. And through the town clerk, is it something that we could ask people to write to the people from the economic group where it came from, indirectly through, so that it's completely inclusive? The more people we have talking about these things, the better the knowledge will be. Is that agreed?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. We'll move swiftly on. This that is agreed. Then I take it. Should we have a show of hands? I don't see anybody's hands today. There we go. That's it. That's unanimously agreed, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to culture and arts, which is the town clerk. Would you like to take us briefly through your report?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So again, this is something that was discussed at the Economic Development Working Group. The proposal is to put some time and effort into drafting a culture and arts strategy for the town. That would enable us to have a more coherent view in terms of other grants we're applying for in the future, and start to have an evidence and a strategic approach if we want to do anything more substantial in terms of culture in the future, particularly the item in the neighbourhood development plan to develop some form of arts venue in the town. So this would involve getting all the stakeholders in and around the town together, collating what we currently do, getting a view of the town's particular identity around culture and arts, and then putting something together which would be endorsed by stakeholders. So it's not just a town council thing, but it's something we'd initiate.
Yeah. But before I take Councillor Donohue's hands up first, I think we can't stress strongly enough that if we want to do anything culturally, we need to get it into the local plan, and we also probably need to put an evidence case together, because obviously the town over future years will grow. And I do remember when I first became a councillor all those years ago, Councillor Strain-Clark was involved in very much the same type of thing, which was trying to get us an art centre. And that's something that we still haven't actually got, despite everybody trying. An art centre would be a beautiful thing for Buckingham in some way or form, but that could be something we could make a case for within the development plan. That would be the right way. Councillor Donohue.
Thank you. I was talking to my neighbour to Down, who's a magician, and he was saying about that it's a shame that Buckingham doesn't have a theatre. We were talking about the various venues around town and how much they cost to hire, and how they don't have the right seating or the right acoustics, and there's no changing room, and there's no this, and there's no bar, and there's no that. And you know, the issues around hiring the town hall, you know, with the access issues. So you know, it's something that I think needs to be looked into. I know that we've discussed it over the years, that to have an art centre or a theatre or something where, you know, we don't just have to hire out halls and then try and adapt those to fit, to have like a purpose built venue would be perfect. So I'm definitely in for this.
Councillor, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Strain-Clark.
Thank you. Yes, I do so agree with that. And I know that we've been sort of diverted a bit in the past because of doing this in conjunction with the university. But every time the university have made strides and built something, of course, they need it for their own students. And we actually need something for the town. And so we need to put that in the local plan. It's no good saying, oh, well, we can use, you know, the theatre, the whatever they call it in the university, or their sort of film room or something, because you could only use that on times when, you know, they just happen to be free, which you can't do that as a town this size and the size we're becoming.
I take it that we would like to just add a stronger wording to this then, that we strongly wish to, as a council, recommend that we look to put in an art centre stroke, specifically an art centre stroke drama stroke whatever, into the community local development plan, because we need to, and just recommend from that's what we strongly think, according to the very good report we received. I'm taking that is a view here. Would that be a fair assumption?
Yeah.
And would we like just to add that, a line to that effect, that we recommend that is taken forward? Where that will go, we don't know. And if he's a really good magician, perhaps we should call on him to actually help us in this.
Well, I know that you're kind of joking, but he actually said that he wouldn't mind getting involved because it's a passion of his. He travels around Europe to various venues, so it'd be good to have someone like him on board.
No, I wasn't joking. I meant it in the nicest possible way. We do need to move this forward. It's been so frustrating. I've seen mayors come and go over the years, and everybody's had a go at this. And one of the things that we have never had, which the town clerk's thankfully thinking about now, is a strategy to actually achieve these things. So that's where we need to be with a strategy. And maybe we might not all be councillors when it's achieved, but we'll be able to look back and say, you know, in 10 years' time when this happens, because these have a timeline, that at least we did get a strategy. Councillor Margaret Gately.
Thank you. I wholeheartedly agree on the strategy. I don't want to be a wet blanket, but how realistic is it that Buckingham could fund and run an arts centre stroke theatre? Are we talking a little theatre, or we're not talking about something like the Waterside in Aylesbury, obviously, but it just seems maybe a little bit of a pipe dream. I don't know.
Well, just give my boy called Clark back in. I went to, if anyone goes to Wales, I used to go regularly to Wales, go to a town called Milford Haven. Milford Haven's got an excellent facility there in a small town community, which has got a theatre, a small restaurant. It's got a cinema, and it's got a dance performance type room in there. It's not a large facility, but it counts cases for the community. Now, running a facility like that would obviously have some commercial benefits, some economic benefits, and social benefits for the town. What we have got a situation, which was alluded to by Councillor Strain-Clark, that when we go along the lines of supporting the university to do something, when we do get to the end of it, rather like the film place, when it comes to actually getting to use the new facility, the new building, then it was decided that it wasn't suitable. And that was accessibility friendly, wasn't it? You know, the new building. So I think we have to sort of do it. And this will have a timeline. And many people will put into it over time. But we will have developments and things come forward. There'll be grants. There'll be lots of things to do this. And even if the council really wants to do it, it will put its own money into it. Back in 1979, 1980, they put money into the community centre and we had that built. So anything's possible, just have to have the vision. Before I see Councillor Rabina wanted to speak, and then I'll come back to the town clerk.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that just reflecting on what Christine said about working with the university and how it's not always available, but there are certain university places where they have an art centre which seems to be generally for the public rather than the university itself. For example, Warwick Art Centre, that's in the heart of the university, but it has all sorts of productions going there all the time. So it seems to be generally for the public. I don't know how the funding side of it works or whether the university just invests as on a business basis, but it could be a model which could be looked at, but obviously much smaller for Buckingham.
I think you're right, but one of the things with public money is it has to go into a public venture. What we couldn't do is get public money into a university venture because the university is a business. That's how it works. But if the university wanted to take this project on and deliver it, of course, we'd all give them all the support we wanted to, but that might not be the case. But I think we're all there. And I see that we've got Councillor Harvey and Councillor Ruth Neal to speak. So I'll take you in that order. Is that the order I saw you?
Can I just say that we're trying to write the strategy before we've even begun to start talking about it. The principle of the report from the town clerk is to set up a discussion, begin to consult people, and then we'll see where that goes.
Yeah.
So I would say thinking about whether an art centre is viable or not is a long way down the track from where we are at the moment. Let's start some discussions and see where that takes us, is what I would say.
Yeah. Well, though I agree with you, John, it's always good to hear what councillors' views are before we go forward, because we are the elected body, and I'm quite keen to know what other people's views. Have you got anything different to raise, Ruth?
Yeah. I've been to the Warwick Arts Centre to a concert, and I just wanted to say that in Aberystwyth, there's an art centre there at the university that's used for all sorts of things: theatre, cinema, art gallery. And I also wanted to add, with the little one that you talked about at Milford Haven, there's a very small seaside town in mid Wales called Borth, and there they have a venue that's used as a theatre, there's a cocktail bar, there's cinema there, and so I could find out more information about that one for you.
well, it was well worth the time listening, wasn't it? Because it's only what you learn. People around the table have got all their experiences of life and they bring it to the committee. And this will be recorded by the minutes, and it will go forward and help form the discussion and the strategy. So it's not a waste. Councillor, any other councillor? I didn't see one. No, I'll go to the town clerk then to wrap up.
Yeah. Just back in response to Councillor Gately's point, I don't think we'd ever be looking to replicate something on the scale of the Waterside, but a kind of 300-400 very flexible venue somewhere in town, I think could work really well. The challenge, I don't think the challenge is around the university. There is a bit of a challenge with the Royal Latin because their next phase approach up their sports centre is some kind of cultural venue. So we'd need to make sure that we either work with them or compete with them. And it's something which would need a lot of time and effort to make happen if we were going to make it happen. But this would be a kind of a way of at least starting to frame it and work out where it would fit in everything else we'll do.
Thanks for that additional information, Town Clerk. One of the things is the Latin School is a private business as well, so it's very much like the university. It's an academy school, so it's all gets very common. But can we agree that we'll send exploratory letters out to both the university and that to be part of this discussion, and the Latin School and the Buckingham Secondary School, because they've got a big arts department and students there who do lots of stuff, and just try and get a bigger interest in. The more people coming into this, and the more interest and enthusiasm you get it, the more likely it will ever succeed. And maybe Councillor Strange-Clark will see that centre that she wanted all those years ago actually be built for once, and take some satisfaction of seeing it done. With that, I'll move on to the next item, which I know I've got to scan back down here. I'm trying to do two things at once here, which is, are we agreed that with that amended, that a recommendation to go out as amended, we agree that strategy?
What's the amendment?
I think we've had a lot of discussion since then. I'll just go back to Nina. I think it was the amendment was that we full support going out to do a strategy for an art centre stroke whatever for Buckingham. I think it was as simple as that. Was that correct, Nina?
Yes, and that obviously that we make sure it's put into the neighbourhood development plan at the appropriate stage.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was no more than that. All the other discussions was well useful. Before I move on, I see Councillor Donohue's finger wagging at me.
Thank you, Chair. It actually says it in the report. The strategy will guide future investment. It says about the neighbourhood development plan. It says about initially questionnaire to stakeholders. So it is actually all in the report.
Yeah, but what we were trying to do, Councillor Donohue, was give a strong steer that we're the events committee in Stoke, which is basically culture, that's what we would look out of it. It's a recommendation we strongly recommend to proceed. That's what our input to it is at this stage, nothing more. Not writing it, as John said, we're not going to write this strategy at this point, but just to give a strong steer from this committee that we're recommending that's what council does. That's from this committee, that's all we're doing, and I think we've agreed that. That's as simple as that. So we spent quite a lot of time. It was really good to hear people's enthusiasm and thoughts on that. So we'll move on to forthcoming events, which is item 10, and we'll receive a discussion from the events coordinator on that. Amanda?
Okay, what I've done on this report is I've listed every single event that we would be doing from the beginning of 2021 right up to the Christmas parade 2021. In my recommendation, I've suggested that I go ahead and apply for all the road closures in bulk, as I always do every January, and then we're just paying the one fee. Because if we say we went ahead and booked the road closure now for Music in the Market, then in 6 months' time, separately for Bandjam, we get charged £860 per event, whereas if we do it in bulk, it's just the one fee of £860.
Are we agreed to do that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And we're looking for an optimistic year, and hopefully, all things being equal, we may do that. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, just the one thing really. I note that one of the few events where there isn't a date attached to it is the Good Endings Fair scheduled for September. So can I propose that maybe we go for the 18th of September? Because that then doesn't clash with the other events that are happening in Lace Hill or other events that are happening around it as well.
Is there any reason why we shouldn't go for that, Amanda?
I think my concern with that would be how we are with the COVID situation, sort of in the summertime. So
If you just
that counts for all the others too.
No,
doesn't it?
No. Can you wait to finish talking? I'm chairing the meeting. Carry on, Amanda.
Yeah, because is the event with all the deaths that we're having? I know Buckingham and the surrounding area hasn't been hit as hard as some areas. Is it still in good taste to go ahead and do that?
Well, I
don't mind going ahead with it, but I don't know what other people think.
I know you want to come back, John, but I think if you remember when we discussed this before, there was huge concern about rushing ahead, booking a Good Endings Fair at the time when COVID is here, and so many families have had an awful time. I think we will certainly do this. We won't. When we do this, this will be really gently done. We'll provisionally agree the date of the 18th, and we'll take that with careful consideration with the officers. I don't think we want to put a date in, because to agree a date tonight is a really bad thing, because we could still be people in sheer grief, and we shouldn't be making that worse. Councillor Gately.
Yeah, I agree with everything you've just said, Robin, but you could argue that it's even more important because death has been visiting us as a nation, as a world, and maybe we need to look at it even more closely than previously, because you just don't know when death is going to hit your own family or loved ones.
Thank you. Councillor Terry Bloomfield.
We discussed this last time, Chairman, about the dates, and we said, I thought we did agree that it should be at least 2 to 3 months of clear deaths, if that's the way you want to put it, before any funeral. You can't have people dying in August and then have a Good Endings Fair in September, in my view.
I think you'll make a good point. What we will do is we will provisionally mark the date. We'll come back to the next committee when we may know more about what's going on with the vaccine. We may know more about the situation in the country, but it would not be a good signal, would it, to announce we're wanting to do that today. I think business-wise and procedure-wise, we have to plan for it, but it's not a good signal unless anyone is disagreeing with that view. John obviously has got his hand up, and I'll come back to him. But I'm taking what Terry said is my memory of the last discussion. John.
The whole point of the Good Endings Fair is to help people through grief by both preparing for death, because that happens to us all at some point, and also managing the ways in which when it does happen, in the best way possible. And as we know, we did this before, we had a range of providers there, including funeral directors and many others whose business it is to help people through death. We can't run away from it. Now, I accept that in doing it right in the middle of a pandemic, doing it now would not make an awful lot of sense. But doing it at a time when hopefully the pandemic will be behind us, given the scale of things with regards to vaccinations now, that life should be getting back to normal by early summer next year, hopefully, if everything goes right. Of course, we can revise this nearer the time, but it just struck me that it does make sense to at least put a date in the diary, get it penciled into the community centre diary now, so that we've got the date available. Otherwise, what will happen is if we somehow get advanced to it, suddenly those dates will not be able to be possible anymore. I'm just saying, let's just put a date in the diary so that we know when it's going to happen, and we will revise that depending on how events proceed in the next few months. Because you could say the same about everything else.
No,
you know,
John,
everything else could be impacted as well.
No, John, we had a discussion at the last meeting. Councillor Bloomfield referred to the discussion, what was happened. We've just agreed the minutes of the last meeting, and now we're rediscussing what we've agreed in the last minutes, that we would look for at least a 3-month window before we pushed on with this. Now, I haven't seen anything that's made me change my mind or the committee's mind. If I'm seeing some evidence that draws me to a different conclusion than the council has come to last time, show it me. But I've been to lots of meetings. I haven't got that evidence yet. I've got that optimism, but I haven't got that evidence. So we will, I'll take Christine St. Clark in a minute, but we'll put the date in the diary, but we make no announcement about doing it, and we'll review this in the new year, because we may know more information. I'm very signal about this. Councillor St. Clark.
I was just going to, if John had been going to make a proposal that we put some date aside for this, as he suggested, the 18th, was it, of September? Yeah, I would second that, because I think, this sort of thing is supposed to be a helpful thing. I must say, I found the last one that we had helpful, after my mother had just died. It was a helpful thing to be able to talk about death and things. So yeah, so I'd like to see that. And of course we don't know what's going to be happening with COVID by then, but
right.
Yeah,
so you're basically saying we'll put the date in. This is and that's what I've just suggested. We put it in provisionally. What I will say is we'll come back to this at the next meeting with an update based on the information we know, the likelihood of what it is, and make a decision about discussing it more publicly then. We've got Christmas coming up. Let's talk about Christmas. We've got hopefully we'll know what's going to happen with vaccines by then. We'll know a lot more information in the new year. And if that's agreed, I'd rather move off this item, I think we've done the discussion, unless Amanda's got something she wishes to add.
Yeah, not about the Good Endings Fair, just the list of events. We've had confirmation today of the dates for the circus, and he's looking at coming in on Thursday the 12th to set up, and he'll be here 13th, 14th and 15th. So that was just one to add on today.
That's your August date.
That's in the August date. Are we happy?
August, yeah.
We're happy with that?
Brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
And then
Councillor Harvey.
Sorry, just to come back, I'm looking at the minutes of our last meeting, and we simply agreed that the event be rescheduled for September 2021, but that the plan be reviewed nearer the time to ensure the timing is appropriate to the current situation. Nothing of what I'm
We've
proposing
moved on from that item. Yeah, we're not going back over it. I'm sorry, I rule you out of order.
Sorry, Councillor, can I finish what I'm saying? I know you're the chair, but you should surely let me finish my sentence. Please. Thank you. I'm simply saying, let's put that date in the diary so that we know which date we're aiming at, and that preparations are made just to put the date in the diary in the community. That's all I'm suggesting.
That's what we agreed if you'd listened previously.
Sorry, Councillor Slattery, can I finish what I'm saying, please?
Point of order,
Chair. If you want me to
please.
hear with me, I'm chairing the meeting. Will you sit down and be quiet and let the meeting proceed? We've agreed the date. We've discussed that. Councillor Bloomfield said what he said. I think John's left the meeting. Okay, that's fine. Can we go back to the events coordinator?
Yeah, in the recommendation, I've also recommended that a working group is set up to start planning for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee celebrations in 2022. So maybe that this group should include outside bodies as well.
Good idea. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And could I thank you for the work you've done on that and the time.
Yeah.
And I think Councillor Bloomfield's got his hand up.
Well, bearing in mind, Chairman, like Amanda about the food fair and all that, being as we're meeting 7 weeks apart, our next meeting would be 3 weeks before that food fair.
Yeah.
So I think because we don't know what's going to happen with COVID, should we not have 4 or 5 of us or just a small committee to meet in between meetings? Because it might warrant that you need, it's like the pancake race.
Yeah, thank you for that, Councillor Bloomfield. I had a meeting to discuss the practicalities with Claire, who's unable to be here tonight. And I asked Claire point blank whether she felt we could go with that event. And she said that she felt that we could go with it. And I'd take it if Amanda thinks that was different than what she said. But I think what we'll do with your agreement, Councillor Bloomfield, is we'll have a discussion with her.
Yeah, fine.
And if we need to bring some other councillors into it, we've got enough experience around the table here to do it. And
what I was saying, Chen, I think we should do that for every event because we meet so far apart. If we need to,
totally agree.
If we need to cancel something, we can't cancel it a week before, but if we met a month before, we could say what we could do. That's all I'm saying.
No, I think you're right, Councillor Bloomfield. You make a very good point. I think that was part of the discussion because it was that we were discussing that event because I needed to know. I'll take the mayor and then the town clerk.
Just in case it puts some clarification on the events that we're discussing, I'm in discussions with the Buckinghamshire NHS Trust and our local Swan practice, and they're hoping within the next 2 to 3 days they'll have a timetable for the vaccinations in Buckingham. At the moment they're looking at starting these either around the 20th of December right through till May to get everybody in the categories in Buckingham vaccinated. But there will be some more detail in the next 2 to 3 days that I can feed back to you.
Brilliant.
Thank you for that. That's really good news. But you're right that this impacts on things like the food fair. I'll take the town clerk and then Amanda wanted to come back because he got his hand up earlier.
Thank you, Chairman. Just picking up on Councillor Bloomfield's point that we might need to be quicker in decision making on all kinds of events through the next 12 months, depending what happens with COVID. I guess the options are we could either set up a kind of standing subcommittee, which Amanda could call but very little notice and just agree now to delegate to that subcommittee whichever members wanted to be on it.
Yeah, good idea.
The other alternative would be just to agree that we would hold extraordinary meetings of this committee if we needed to, as and when.
Just a suggestion, should we try to do both? What I'm saying is we'll have a standing subgroup to look at this of the vice chair, the chair and Geraldine or Margaret or John or any other member to be on that. So there's 3 of us that meet when we meet. And if there's a decision then that it's something so important, we then schedule a proper meeting in to discuss it, rather like when we had to discuss the decisions over the events, to avoid having to have a standing meeting for one item. But if there's something really whatever, it's not right that we exclude all the council members from it. Would that be a reasonable way forward? First option is the subgroup, and then if they think it needs to go to all the committee, it goes to all the committee. Anyone against that approach? It's a dual approach. Because I don't.
Let's go with it.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And was there anything additional, Amanda?
Margaret had a hand up.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Paul.
I was saying Councillor Gately had a hand up then.
Councillor Gately, sorry.
Or does Amanda want to speak first? Because she's
Yeah,
been
it's just started.
Yeah, right, okay. I said I was going to go to Amanda, then the town clerk said you wanted to speak, and Bar has to argue with the town clerk. Amanda, then we'll take Councillor Gately in that order, as Councillor Gately pointed out is correct.
Okay, with the food fair, I've already had inquiries as to whether or not we're doing it. So I've got people that are interested. And today I was trying to find out from, is it Deborah Lockhart that's running the Christmas market on Saturday, as to what she's doing for social distancing with the stall holders, how many people they're allowed in at a time, and then sort of use that as a guideline. I've asked her for a copy of her risk assessment, if she's got one, so we can have an idea of how we're going to do this, because we're used to having 24, 25 stall holders in the big hall, WI doing refreshments in the small hall, which I don't think we'd be able to do this year, and then some stalls outside. But I need to get on with this now, get people booked in. If we have to cancel it, like we've done other events this year, we can do that. But also talking about having working groups and things for the Charter Fair, bonfire and fireworks, the big events. I need to start planning those now and getting everything booked for them, like the removal of the bollards, the firework group. So is that okay if I carry on as normal?
I believe that's what we're agreeing.
Yeah.
I'll go to Councillor Gately, and I noticed the Mayor has got her hand up as well.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for that clarification, Amanda. I'm thinking specifically of the food fair, because given what Geraldine's just said about the first vaccinations on the 20th of December, they've then got to have even if you've got a significant number of people that soon, they've got to have the second injection 3 weeks later, and again, you're not immune for another week after that. So it pushes us ever closer to that date for the food fair. I mean, normally we give out free samples and things like that, which may not be possible. I just can see that it's going to, I feel as I'm being a wet blanket tonight, but
no.
I'm just not sure that it's realistic that we'll have enough people who've been vaccinated and have the necessary time for it to be immune by the end of February. If we aren't going to go ahead, then we should be cancelling it sooner rather than later.
Well, I spoke at this, all the things that you said, Councillor Gately, I discussed with the Deputy Town Clerk, and because before it even got on the agenda, and she was minded that all the things that we said about proceeding, and she mentioned what she knew, that Geraldine was and the community centre were looking at vaccinations. So I taken her guidance, and of course, if it won't go forward, like Amanda said, it won't go forward. But I see Geraldine wanted to speak, and then we'll go back to Town Clerk and then close this matter down.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Just to say, I saw Amanda asked me earlier about Deborah Lockhart's plans. She hasn't given us a risk assessment copy, but I do know that she's planning on having lots of marshals there just to let so many people in at a time. So I think she's got quite a few people in line to police it all. And if when the vaccinations start, they're just going to be using the small hall and the kitchen. So the large hall will still be free. But it means lots of people going in and out. I don't know how that stands.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is, we live in uncertain times, don't we?
Yeah.
And I love the Town Clerk have the last word, and then I was to close this one down and move forward. I think we've had a strong discussion, a full discussion, a sensible discussion, and a disagreeable discussion all at the same time. So I think we've covered everything there. We've disagreed, we've agreed, and we've discussed it. So that's everything. So Town Clerk.
Yeah, without wanting to put words into Deputy Town Clerk's mouth, who's not here, I think her view was that it would be possible to hold a food fair and comply with the current regulations. You'd have a lot less stalls because of distancing, and as Geraldine mentioned, marshalling. So I don't think her advice was whether we should or shouldn't, that it would be possible if that's what members wanted to do. But it would be helpful for the committee to give a clear direction on whether we should be planning to go ahead if at all possible, or if, as has been suggested, actually attendance is likely to be much lower, and given all the issues around it, it'd be wiser just to decide now not to go ahead.
So we don't reopen the discussion, which was worthy. So I say that we agree to go with it if it's possible, and all things being equal, we can do it. If it comes out that we can't do it, we won't do it. But we can. That needs to be a discussion outside this meeting, is by questions over the vaccination, questions with the store holders, and whatever, and move forward. Councillor Bloomfield, then I'll move it on.
There is also a question that we hopefully stay in tier 2, Robin, because if we get a tier 3, we won't be able to have it. So that's another.
Well, you and Margaret are in the same room today.
I'm always a wet blanket, I am.
I'm trying to be optimistic.
I'm usually glass half full. I don't know why.
I'm only joking.
Mind you, we could also be in tier 1. So looking at it that way.
Also, Wolverhampton Wanderers could win the league, but
the way they played yesterday, they couldn't.
No, that's me being optimistic. Geraldine, is it something additional?
I'm just wondering if an autumn food fair might be.
Let's try not to. Shall we proceed with that? We wish to proceed it if possible, practical, safe, legal, and economic, and doable. And if that isn't the case, if that's a proposal that we look at doing it another time. But the problem with the autumn one, and I think Amanda's going to come back and tell you that, is all the big store holders will be at all the big events.
Yeah.
And the reason we do it when we do is it's the only time they'll come to us, because they've got the whole summer affair, and Buckingham isn't a big enough draw to have them come. That's why it was planned originally at that. But was that something you were going to say, Amanda?
Yeah, and something else. What I was going to say was I can contact a couple of stall holders and just see what their view is on it.
Yeah.
And then we'll get a better idea.
Margaret, on this decision basis, being as I'm so enthusiastic and Terry and you are so sensible, are you happy to be the first person to be in this small group of councillors that when we have to make this decision? Would you be happy?
Yeah, sure.
You know, because because you're being rational, you're being, you're not being a damn squid, you're being rational. That's what we need. That's fine. So with that, we're going to do it if at all possible, and we'll move it on, and the minutes will reflect that. And if there's anything different, a note will come to all the members about why and what. And of course, I think vaccination is far more important than a food fair for Buckingham, wouldn't we agree?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, in which case 10.2, which is a report ready to note on the LACEL events.
Yeah, agreed.
Is there anybody got any concerns about that at all?
No.
Okay, in which case we agree that report, and it looks like a good collection of things to do in any case. In which case we'll put on to item 11, events review, which is a local democracy event. The events coordinator has produced a report. It was chaired by Councillor Donoghue because the MP didn't fulfil his obligations to us and had another event, even though we'd actually thought we'd got his agreement in correspondence, but he did turn up at the beginning. Councillors, I'll go with Amanda coordinate, and I'll go to Councillor Donoghue because she chaired it. Amanda?
Yeah, considering it was the first time that we'd done this event online, I think it went really well. We had 3 questions from each school, and they were good questions. And I think the panel, you know, came back really well with their answers.
Yeah, Councillor Donny, and then I'd like to be interested in Councillor Rabina Ahmed's view, because she was the first time she'd attended this event. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think it went really well, to be honest. It was, we had good participation with the students. I noticed that the teachers, they were talking to their students as well, like when they weren't, when they weren't, when they were muted, shall I say, they were giving them advice and stuff. Yeah, so I think it went really well. It was a shame that we couldn't do it in person, obviously, but it's yeah, it was better than cancelling it, Chair. So it went really good. So can I just say thanks to Amanda as well for all your hard work, and if that can be minuted, please. Thanks, Nina.
Agree. Councillor Rabina Ahmed.
Yeah, well, obviously it was my first time attending the local democracy event. So I thought it, considering the circumstances, it went really well. You know, great questions from students from all the schools. So yeah, I thought it was a great event, and it's definitely something that we should continue doing, and looking further into it. You know, it kind of, a lot of the questions overlapped with things we were discussing in the diversity and inclusion working group. So yeah, it's definitely a great idea to reach out to the students. They had a lot of very good things to say, and like I said, the questions were excellent.
Thank you.
A worthwhile event.
It's worth knowing, because we've been doing these events, different councillors, different mayors, Councillor Harvey, and everybody's been involved in these events. It's always interesting, someone who's not seen it before. Hopefully next year it'll be in person. Yeah. And the mayor, whoever the mayor, he or she may be, will be leading on it or be involved. The only thing I will say, there were some particular things in the report that I think we need to follow up. There was an offer at the beginning of the meeting by the MP that he was going to invite all the students present and all the people taking part to the House of Commons. I think we need to make sure that he honours that. He may have forgotten it in the enthusiasm of going around Buckingham being photographed in all our shops at the weekend. He'd probably forgotten that he made that, and we've minuted it, and I think we owe it to the children to write to him and remind him that he's going to take them around the school when it's safe. I think it Councillor Donahue felt it was probably open to you as well, was it? I think he was going to, I think that was the wording that was expressed. Unfortunately, because we were not able to record the meeting because it was with children, otherwise we would have had it all verbatim. But thankfully it was minuted. So are we going to write to him, remind him of that promise? Because
I don't think we need to, Chair, because it was only what, a month, 2 months ago. We're in COVID. I would say.
No, I think being as we wrote to him and asked him to attend the meeting, and then he had a further engagement. I think we owe him the courtesy of writing to him to remind him what he's done, and we've discussed it, and we thank him for his attendance and his participation in the meeting, and we do it in a nice way like that, because he's a busy man. He may have been somewhere else.
I don't mind thanking him, but I just think reminding him that he's made a promise and suggesting that he may have forgotten it, I think that's a bit hard.
Well, I'm not suggesting he's forgotten it. I'm just saying
you said that.
I did. I really? Well,
you did.
I can forget things occasionally. So I think it's reasonable that we asked the children to turn up, and as a courtesy, we look forward to him making contact with his children, because John Burko used to have these sessions regularly and take the schools up there, and it's something that the MPs are able to do. The democracy service they do up there for children is first rate. They start to learn about Parliament, they see where it is, they're taken around by professional guides, and it's important with children that it happens. Councillor Rubina Hamid.
I just want to say, maybe when we write him a thank you letter, we can also thank him very kindly for the offer he's made to us and all the children to come along to the Houses of Parliament. That way there's no reminder. We're just very grateful and really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I agree with that. That sounds a much better way than me. Yeah,
definitely.
I was just being my normal blunt self. But that's me. I mean, I wouldn't have said it any different if I'd have met him. He'd have got the same response. So, yeah, that sounds a really good way forward, Councillor Hamid. We need to do that. Is that happy that we agree that approach?
Yeah, go with it.
Yeah.
And then everybody's vanity is looked after. And more importantly, the thing is, I felt that the children were brilliant. I felt that the questions they asked were appropriate. It was their questions. And when we started these events, I think we started them many 10 and 15 years ago. I think, would it have been the 15th year?
11.
Yeah, because when I spoke to Councillor Donny about it, I said it was, and she reminded me that she'd chaired it for 10 years. So so it's been going on and off.
I've been leading on it for 10 years. That's what you mean.
On it. That's it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to be offending you because but anyway. But anyway, that's we can move forward on a positive note with that, and we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is item 12, the review of the Christmas lights, which I would like to hear from the officers and then a discussion about it from the councillor's point of view. Noting that in the report, the only councillor was present was Councillor Mike Smith, because factually, if he hadn't been present, we couldn't have got in the old jail. So that's why he was there and we weren't, before anyone says why was he there. Okay, Amanda.
Okay, once again, this was another event that we had to do online, and just obviously with just 7 people to switch on the lights. Yeah, we've been in touch with Granta Network, who we hired to send a couple of drones up to take footage of all the lights being switched on over Buckingham, and we asked residents to get involved in the Light Up Buckingham event. And from what I understand, is it Plover Close?
Plover Close.
Every house, is that what it's called? Okay, sorry. Every house there had lights on, but people seem to be getting quite excited about it and spreading the word, which we wanted them to do. Overall, I think it went very well. We were quite well coordinated. We had timers on our phones so that when it hit 7 o'clock, we all flicked the switch. And I think when you watch the video, it all went as planned.
Yeah.
And the tree was provided by Buckinghamshire Council, as they have done over the last few years. They have a contract to supply trees to the local villages. It was quite a nice tree this year. It wasn't as tall as normal, but it was proper shape. Yeah, it was hard work, and the committee clerk did all the social media for us over the weekend, and she sort of commented on what went right and what went wrong with that, and as we've said before, a lot of it's trial and error. So if we have to do it all again online next year, we know, sort of how to do it. Similar with the dog show, we know what works and what doesn't.
Thank you. What was members' views of it, having all obviously got immediately and watched YouTube on it?
Excellent.
Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, I think it was great. Fantastic. My only comment about the report is whether, if we do the same thing next year, whether that would be, there'd be some tension between staying at home, switch on your own lights, or being in the town centre, seeing the lights switch on. Whether we could phase those differently, maybe have 7 o'clock in town and maybe 8 o'clock, or I don't know, have a different time or something like that, just so that people can do both if they want to. But I thought it was great. Brilliant.
One thing I would say, and any other members got a view on it, their experiences and what they've talked to people about it, because we probably see different circles of people in this strange world we're in. Councillor Gately.
Thank you. It's probably because I'm not very good on tech, but I went onto the town council's website, and when I looked at Christmas lights, it was all talking about 2019. And I was desperate, as the time was approaching, I was desperately going along the website, trying to find something and what I should do. And I just couldn't find it. I mean, maybe I just needed a better steer as to where to look. And I went on the Facebook page. I was just getting desperate. And I thought, I'm sure there's something I should be able to find. And eventually, I think it was possibly just after 7, I found the Bard of Buckingham first with what he'd done. And then I think I found what Geraldine had said. But I was just struggling a little bit. And I don't know whether people who aren't great on technology just needed it to be spelled out perhaps a bit better, a bit more clearly what to expect and what actually to do and when. And maybe I just had unrealistic expectations.
No, thank you.
But what I found,
that's
what I saw.
That's interesting.
Very good.
I'd like to just Nina, who done the social media. She got any committee clerk? She got any comments on it? Because you were doing the social media, so you were in the hot chair. The rest of us were in our armchairs.
Amanda meant the communications clerk, not the committee clerk.
Yeah.
It was Louise.
Sorry, that was me.
Was it? Oh, sorry.
I'll take credit for it.
In which case, it was. I apologise for asking you that question, Nina. Only from my own point of view, I did click into it reasonably well. I watched it and found it quite indicative. I think that the Dean contribution to it was tremendous. I think considering we hadn't actually done anything like that before, and everyone did what they did, it was really good. And the one thing which was interesting, it was interesting enough that both the Brackley radio station covered it. Amanda put me on Brackley radio station, and 3 counties covered it. So, because no one else was doing anything like that. So, between all the people who thought this up and the committee and the officers and whatever, of course, everything can be better. It was a positive turnout, and yeah, I got to do 2 radio interviews on it, that probably, so I enjoyed doing that because I love talking, as you know. Town clerk.
Yeah, we'll take Councillor Gately's point back. I suspect what's happened is that we pushed the boundary really well with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and our YouTube account, which is growing really well. But we just need to make sure we're really on top of making sure the website stays updated with what we're doing on social media, because we tend to put stuff on the website and then do all the exciting stuff on social media and not always remember that people go to the website first quite often as well. So we're juggling more and more balls, so we've just got to make sure we've got a good system for keeping all the balls in the air.
Okay, Geraldine had her hand up before we move on to the next item, which is an important item, her cards. Geraldine.
Yeah, I was swapping backwards and forwards between the website and the Facebook page, and I did find it a little bit difficult at the beginning to join it all together at the start.
And just for interest, ask Councillor Harvey, what was the comments on social media on it? Were they positive or negative?
Positive, I think. From the comments I've seen, very positive. It's good.
Because you see far more social media than most of us do, unfortunately. So, I was saying, so I was just wondering what it was. That's good. So, are we going to put that down as a win?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'll put that down as a win. And thank you and can we record our thanks to all the staff who facilitated this in office, out of office, and record our thanks to Councillor Smith for letting us get into the old jail. and which we should record it because he did turn out. He had to, otherwise it wouldn't have worked, would it? As we well know. Well, thank you for that, and we'll move on to the Mayor's Christmas card, which is that's the next one, isn't it? No.
Well,
yeah, Mayor's Christmas card. Do you want to talk on that, Geraldine? Yes, it's about you.
I don't mind. No, No, it was very good. I think we had lots of entries, lots and lots for the middle age group, not so much for the 12 to 16s. They were very poor amount of entries for there. So I don't know whether we could adjust the ages a little bit so we could get a different proportion. But overall, there were some fantastic entries, and it was very difficult to choose between them all. Very hard to choose the winners, but we did, and yeah, I think everybody was pleased with that. I was delighted to do that. It's lovely.
Just through you, Madam Mayor, what was the situation with it? Have we had cards printed, or will we have cards printed?
We are having them printed, yeah. Black Dog,
yeah,
printing cards, so there'll be some for sale in the old jail and available to the councillors to purchase.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
I've already ordered some so I can send some out to other mayors and people like that, using our local kids cards for that.
Thank you. That's very good. Councillor Strain-Clark.
Oh, thank you. This is only a tiny point. Just in our notes here, it says the competition started on Monday, the 16th of November and closes on Monday, the 30th of December. Presumably that meant to say 30th of November. Or whatever. I don't know.
That's only a typo.
It's obviously wrong.
It's a typo, which is...
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It says December and not November.
Oh, these are some of the cards coming
no,
up.
hang on, that's the wrong one.
That was your own Christmas cards, wasn't it? You got some to put up just briefly.
Maybe. Oh, it's not working now.
Oh, do you want to? Can you just freeze? Can you just send it to us after the meeting? A link with them on, and we can look at them.
Yeah, we will do.
And then
they're on Facebook, aren't they?
Are we?
Yeah.
I'm not. Correct me if I'm wrong, Geraldine. You're financing the printing out of the mayor's charity, aren't you? Or are we paying
mayor's allowance?
I haven't heard of that.
Well,
it says that the Black Dog Designs are covering
it said the Black Dog Designs were funding it for us.
Okay, in which case, can I agree through the committee that any revenues taken for this, we agree will go to the mayor's charity?
They did say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to it.
Yeah, okay.
It's in a report.
That's fine then. That's good. That's important. I just want to make sure that there's no discrepancy. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, just say I put in my order today at the old jail. They've not been printed yet, but they should be out this week, I've been told. So I'll be collecting them later on this week, I hope.
Yeah, it did say early December, so.
Yeah.
Great.
Brilliant.
That's brilliant. Right. In which case, we move on to Lucky 13, which is rubbish. And Nina led on this, didn't you, Nina? I just how did you think it went?
I think it was a good exercise in getting the message out there. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not illuminated. I think I was really pleased with how the younger people picked it up and ran with it. Obviously, it was in response to the fact that we would normally have a litter picking event during the year, but with obviously social distancing restrictions, we haven't been able to. It was definitely a great exercise in building networking relationships with the recycling team over in Buckinghamshire Council. So this was an initiative that they'd already run with and had an equally quite a good response on social media. So there'd been quite a few comments and shares and likes and that sort of thing, but a limited number of photographs actually submitted. As the head of the team over there had commented, it's difficult to encourage people to take selfies putting rubbish in a bin. So whilst they might actually be affected by the issue and it might lead to, one hopes, a behaviour change, you're really going to get the kids that are going to be the ones going, you know, come on, take my picture because I might win a prize, rather than the grown-ups. So we had 4 of our entries received a prize, and you'll see from the photographs, obviously, that went out on social media and are on the report. There were some really lovely photographs sent in. I think what really struck me was that 2 of the children that won a prize actually owned their own litter pickers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just fantastic. That one in particular had asked for one for his birthday.
Yeah.
That just goes to show how eco-conscious a lot of our children are nowadays.
Maybe there's something in what you've just said. Children are becoming far more aware. They can probably teach it through education and everything, and they're much more socially aware about this, and they're thinking about the environment. And at that age, if they're going to pick up a litter picker and going to use it, you know, what a credit they are to us. You know, I was the generation that had Mark Bolan Keep Britain Tidy campaign, and and that went well, didn't it?
Yeah.
I never did win the T-shirt.
You didn't miss much, Robin.
No, I wanted the Mark Bolan T-shirt.
Oh, was that it?
But that was what the prize was at the time. But thank you, Nina. Are we going to agree that we'll try and do something similar again?
Yep.
In more easier times, because
indeed,
and we'll bring it back with some ideas to another meeting, because we just keep pushing on with this idea of doing something with the environment and children and whatever. And when COVID is off, maybe we don't have to have a selfie. We could get your friend to take the photograph of you putting rubbish in the bin. Because I had problems getting to do a selfie of myself with the iPad with the photograph I took. Yeah, it was difficult. But thank you for that. And we'll move on to the next item, if that's okay, which is item 14, the skate park. Update from Councillor Donnelly. This is for people. There was a few theories of communications, and it came back to us for Councillor Donoghue to consult with through the community board, through whatever, and the stuff she was doing with children was for her to consult with the young people via social media or something about what their aspirations were for the skate park. There's been a communications with the officers through to both the community board and the Buckinghamshire or Shire councillors about this matter. The cabinet member is enthusiastic to put it, and the officer wants to get forward, and all that was left to do was to make sure there was an involvement with young people and whatever who were involved. That's correct, isn't it, Councillor Donoghue?
Yeah, and just to update you, because I haven't updated you, because I only got another name yesterday. I've got 3 of the older users of the skate park. One of them, Amanda will know, because he's won our skate park competition a few times, Lee. He's very keen to be involved. He remembers when it was a swimming pool and then turned into the skate park. So he's of the first generation to have used it. And so that's nice. And we've got some that didn't want to be involved, where they might have to come to a face-to-face meeting or go on Zoom, but they were happy for someone to be like the spokesperson. So Jimmy Michael, he's a long-time user of the skate park. He said that he's happy to be like that conduit for the other older group who don't want to be that involved. So I've got Lee, Jimmy, and another lad called George, and another lad called Matt, and Tracy from Action for Youth. She had sent an email to say that she had put feelers out in both the secondary schools and had names of younger ones. So I said to Jo Houston, we'll let her get the younger names then. I'll concentrate on the older users, and then we'll go from there. So I've updated him today just to say that I have got, older ones. So we'll just wait on Tracy to get the younger ones. If she isn't able to, then I'll make the contacts with the younger ones.
Thank you. Can you just copy Amanda and the offers into that, so that when it comes back for Joe, I'm really pleased that you got that far with me. We hadn't spoke not on that. So I just so that we've got it there, and then we can do a proper. Maybe we can in the new year. Maybe we'll get to a position where we can advise. It'd be lovely to get this in. Not to be the people who delay it, because they've got the money and everything, and
they're hoping for March, I think, either March or May. They're hoping for
exactly. So we don't want to be the people who delay it. So if you do that coordination, and then we'll bring an update of what's decided to the committee at a future date, and it will go both here and environment, I think.
Yeah, you are copied in on my email to Joe. So
yeah, I have lots of emails. I will see it later tonight. Right, Amanda, and then I'll move on.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that Lisa's got the older ones, Lee and Jimmy Michael, involved in this, because the younger kids look up to them and have learnt a lot skateboarding from them, and I think those two will take it really seriously and get exactly what the kids want, or put forward exactly what should go in there. Well done, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I think in a small way, all of us councillors can breathe both a sigh of relief that it's going to actually happen, and take a small amount of credit for the fact that we've pushed it for a number of years, and thanks to the new cabinet member and Joe Houston, it's actually going to happen. And our meeting that we had, which is a historic meeting with Councillor Harvey, obviously has produced something positive. So it's not very often you can say that all things are looking positive, but they are at the moment. And what I'm looking for is the mayor to try it out when it's all produced. I'll come down and watch. Councillor Harvey.
I don't say it's really good to have young people involved. I certainly had correspondence with the cabinet member who'd been responding to the petition, and I emphasised to him it was really important to get the young people involved. So it's great that Lisa, you're leading on that, because their insights, their sense of ownership is going to be critical to the success of the new skate park. So that's really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So it's not agreed that the mayor should try it out first. Then no, okay.
No, Robin, I tried it when my boys started skateboarding. I couldn't get on it then, the balance right. So
I'd be willing to do it with you.
You tried to break my leg.
I'm trying to pull your leg, not break it.
You guys use my scooter. You can go down the ramp on my scooter.
That's a good idea, Lisa.
But yeah, I say it's a really good thing, and our efforts on that are going to be rewarded, and it goes back over a number of years. Let's hope one day we can have the same discussion about the track for the cycle.
BMX track
in Buckingham.
And
theatre. Yeah, but all these things take time. Let's not go back over the agenda. Thank you for your enthusiasm, but we're not going to go back over them. Right, access. Councillor Strain-Clark, is there anything to update on access?
I'd just like to say one thing, and because we haven't been having any actual events or anything, so that we can't sort of talk about people getting to events, but I do know that even among our town councillors there sometimes has been problems with Zoom and so on. I think now we can all manage to get to meetings okay, but there's sometimes been Councillor Suchbury, I know that there have been meetings that you haven't been able to get in at the beginning of a meeting, but then you sort of think about the whole situation of people in Buckingham who are disabled and have other problems, and quite what we can do about it, I don't know. But do we actually keep any note? Perhaps I should ask the town clerk. Do we keep any note of anybody when members of the public want to get in, whether they actually do manage to see what's going on and so on? Or do you get any complaints saying, oh, I wanted to look at such and such a meeting and I couldn't access it?
We don't keep a register, no. I'm struggling to remember. There may have been times earlier on, certainly in recent months, I can't think of an occasion when we've had an issue. I mean, overall, we've probably had more people, more members of the public than would have been the case before we went into Zoom. And for example, when we had the recent planning presentation from Barrett's, we had 3 different staff from 3 different locations who are probably more senior than we would have had in the chamber if we'd done it in the chamber. Yeah. And you can also add to that the number of people who have watched meetings on YouTube. So some meetings, well over 100 people have watched them. And obviously we wouldn't come anywhere near that kind of access. And also obviously they're there for people to go back to and check, and somebody says something exciting is happening at a meeting and people can go and see it for themselves. So in lots of ways, it is swings and roundabouts, but there are actually some really strong benefits. So one of the interesting conversations next year for us is going to be, do we just go back to meeting in the chamber, or do we go to some kind of hybrid solution where we're always on Zoom as well as being physically present? There's a big technical challenge to that, but that might be something.
Could I just say something that one of the things that is going back to meeting in the chamber is probably the right way there. I've done lots of meetings, and I can tell you that this isn't the best way to do a meeting. And if you attend meetings and doing scrutiny, doing stuff via this, and I've probably sadly attended far more of these meetings than most, and I find it not the most satisfactory way of doing stuff. It may be convenient, but I don't think it's the most democratic way of doing stuff. And I think you miss what you get at the beginning of the meeting, which is the conversation with a councillor about their opinion on a subject on the agenda, which sometimes changes the way you look at something completely once you've heard what they've said. And it's not so fluid, it's very stale. And it's quite nice that we can do this, but I still think whatever we do, we should carry on filming the meetings now. That's a good way forward.
I'm just going to say yes, because for me it feels as if I'm being a bit selfish, because I find meetings on Zoom so much better than in the council chamber, because I don't have all the bother of, well, getting my coat on for a start, and getting out to the front door, let alone getting.
Well, maybe a hybrid can be possible.
I just wanted to make sure it's not actually, disadvantaging anybody else.
Councillor Harvey, before we move on, because it's not something we're really discussing, but yeah, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, I would say that when we come out of this pandemic and social distancing, all that sort of stuff, we need to seriously review how we conduct our meetings. And I think there ought to be always a choice, perhaps for meetings, as to whether we're meeting on Zoom or whether we're meeting in the council chamber. I don't think we should assume that everything has to go back to the council chamber again. I think if people want to have, say, a brief chat like this, then we ought to have that facility available to us. And even perhaps, even if we have a meeting, it may be possible for someone to dial in to a meeting rather than have to be present. I think we need to be flexible about this, because I think access is a big issue, something we're all completely committed to. And to my mind, if we are committed to access, then we need to think about how we access our meetings. And I think we need to kind of think that forward. Not make decisions tonight, but I think we need to be thinking in that direction.
Yeah. Thank you, John. The only thing I'll say from my point of view, I don't live in a huge house, and having a meeting in your house, and I do lots of meetings in my house now, actually is quite damaging for everybody else in the family. I think in one room, which means they cannot use that room, and they have to keep out the way, and they do all that very sensibly, and that's why and also going to a meeting is an occasion, and you take it, and the preparation and the ceremony that goes through that is well worth doing. No, I think we just have a discussion, but I'd be very disappointed if we were going to now invest in the council chamber and then never use it. That would be a really quite ridiculous thing to do, wouldn't it? A hybrid may be the way forward, like people who don't want to come out can get from home. But that's not what we're here for. It's not actually on the agenda.
No.
It just ended up drifting into that. So we'll go from something we have got on the agenda, and which is town centre manager. There's a report on the agenda, which you've all obviously looked at, about us making a recommendation to have a town centre manager. Is there any concerns to that we're recommending? The reason I'll let town clerk come in. Go on.
Yeah, just to highlight a couple of things. Firstly, I'm not talking about, there's no suggestion to spend more money on this than we currently spend. So the proposal would be to realign our current resources. And secondly, obviously this would come under resources, not this committee to make a decision. But this area of work does affect this committee. And it's something that through a number of presentations, particularly EDWG, have talked about the need for some kind of town centre manager role, similar possibly to Princess Risborough / Aylesbury, that kind of role, to spend a lot more time working with businesses, engaging with businesses, especially as we come out of lockdown.
Councillor Murray.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't say whether it's a full-time job or whether we're going to draw somebody from the present staff.
Yeah, this is what I thought you'd say. If I try and help, the way that we're envisaging this will be a combined role with I'm not going to do the job description tonight, but my understanding it's going to be a combined role, very much fits in with town centre being tourism and whatever, and the town clerk will obviously do this, but it could end up being a combined role or something. It's not going to be a budgetary expense to the council, because it's a realignment of it. But we don't really want to write the report, do we, for the resources committee tonight? But the principle is we are the town centre and events committee, and it will come under our budget, and we should discuss it first. If we've discussed town centre managers many times over many years, but the great advantage this would be is our town clerk and our council and councillors would be having oversight of this. And if we had this on the lines as the town clerk said, Princess Risborough, it would give us opportunity to speak to the town centre independent traders on a more fluid basis, and communications would flow. We could start building up better relationships, ownership of our town centre and how it progresses, how it economically pulls forward going forward. And with, as we've all talked about endlessly over these meetings, with the COVID pandemic, we're going to need something to coordinate, just making sure that our market fits in with everything else. It's a virtuous circle, really. And tourist information, which we invested in, is a huge pot of money, isn't it? So that we've got the resources to be able to do this. Does that help? Councillor Donoghue.
No, it doesn't, Mr. Chairman. It doesn't say whether it's a full-time job. Is it somebody already doing it? Are we going out on a recruitment advertising for this post?
I think
just let a minute, because the town. I'm sorry, Councillor Donoghue. I think the town clerk wants to cut in there, and then I'll take you back. Is that all right, Councillor Donoghue?
Thank you.
Yeah, just to clarify, what's coming to this committee for decision is whether, in principle, you agree that having some form of town centre manager could be helpful for developing the town centre and taking the town council's role in the town forward. The issues that Councillor Mahi's quite correctly raising need to be dealt with by resources, not by this committee. So that's why there's no information in the report about who it might be, how it would be recruited, whether it be external or internal, how many hours it would be, because that's the next question to ask. So this is an in principle question around, in principle, would you support us developing the role, working out a job description, looking at budgets? And we absolutely can't get into individuals or people here because it's not resources and we're not in a confidential session. So it's just that in principle discussion. If we needed to increase the precept to have more budget for the role, then I'd have asked for that. I'm not asking for that. So whatever we come out with would be done within the town council's current resources.
I'll take Councillor Donoghue and then the mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say that really, that the report says that we're asking a resources committee to consider a detailed proposal. We don't have a detailed proposal here. We don't have anything really of any substance here. All we have, and all we're being asked to do, is ask the resources committee to look at this in more detail. We have nothing. So I'd be happy to recommend. I'm happy to go with recommendation, because it might be interesting to read a report on why we might need a market manager, a town manager, the pros and the cons of having a town manager, and that's a report that I would be eager to read. So I'm happy for resources to look into this.
Councillor Geraldine Collins.
Well, I was just going to ask all the questions that we're not going to get answers to. I need to know, we need a detailed report on why we need one, what the role is going to be, and all of that before we can make any decisions at all. So I'm not sure why.
Well, I'm happy as chair, knowing what I know is that we carry on the discussions. All the detailed stuff that you want to know will be done when we as the budget is our budget. That's why you're discussing it. It's in our budget heading. The reason it's come here first and not gone to resources first is because we have to want this to be looked into so resources can look into it. What we are doing is like a council structure thing. We are saying, in principle, we agree with it. That's what I'm hoping we're saying. And then resources will, with the town clerk, deputy town clerk, the officers, write a job description for it, a detailed description, and now it's going to be funded. But the money for town centre, it comes out of our committee. So all we're really doing is that we can't write the job description. I had this when we had lots of discussions in the past where we took the decision that resources would lead on this type of thing, and we'll all get to discuss it at resources. And if we've got any concerns, we'll be able to ask them when the report comes forward. But to stop a report being going forward for not being able to answer all the questions would be a bit silly, because this isn't, we're not doing that. We're just agreeing in principle that we want that information to be done, as both Councillor Donoghue has suggested and the town clerk has. Does that help, Geraldine?
Well, it doesn't. It does from your point of view, but the towns I know that have got a town centre manager employ somebody either part-time or full-time. And what I'm worried about is that if we are not going to employ somebody and we're going to give that added job onto one of our office staff anyway, who already have enough to do, I don't see that as a viable option to give them another job as town centre manager as well.
Can I just be just my view? This isn't an opinion. My view is that we managed to secure a reasonably good decision in the year where we took the decision to do tours information in-house. I never heard anybody worried about that. The resources can be additional hours for people, or it could be a job change. But that isn't what we do here. We are just trying to scope out the vision, and we're asking them to put the detail together. When the detail comes to resources committee, then you can scrutinise it in the nth degree. You can ask all the questions which are very detailed, but to try and floor a subject because of lack of information at this stage wouldn't be prudent. You'll get a chance to floor a subject at a later stage. So you know, that's, if that's what you see it as a negative, that's the real time to do it in resources, and then it will go from resources to full council to be agreed. So you'll get another chance to discuss it, and that's called scrutiny of the subject, and that's what we're doing. What we're doing here is just scoping out the principle. I think that's fair enough. I'll take Councillor Donoghue, and then I'd like to move to a vote.
Thank you, Chair. I think the difficulty is possibly is, as you said, the money is going to come from this committee, but we've got nothing. We've got no report. And it's fine. if the members of TC&E are on resources, because then they can have a vote on it. But for those members that aren't on resources, they don't get a vote. But then, like you just said, it will go to full council. All members will be able to read the detailed report that I'm keen to read from the town clerk. I would also imagine that Paul wouldn't suggest doing something that wasn't within the remit of the office already. I don't think he would suggest something that wasn't possible. So I think on that basis, I'd be happy to read a report.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that, Lisa and Councillor Donny. Okay. What I'd like to do is I'll second what you're saying, because nobody else has, and to move forward, because in my view, it works very well with tourist information, the town centre and everything else. And that's where we need to be. And if you, unfortunately, this is one of the problems with these things. Those of us who were at the meeting when we heard from the town councillor who came and gave us a report at the economic thing, and you heard how this can actually be a positive thing. It's a case that sometimes you have to take stuff on trust and believe that it's going to be, but don't worry, governance and scrutiny is in there. You're going to get to scrutinise this before we go. And I have had discussions with the town clerk, and we're not envisaged raising the precept, and we're not envisaged altering the staffing levels. But it's up for the town clerk to decide how he manages his office. It's not for us to micromanage it now, and it's up to him to bring back a report on how he sees to go forward. And then it's up for us to comment on it. So on that basis, are we happy to move to the vote? It's been proposed that we, by Councillor Donnan, second by me from the chair, that we go out and do this piece of work. Is that agreed? Have a show of hands.
So what piece of work do you want doing?
The detailed report.
Geraldine, I'm sorry, but you've got an agenda and it's in it. And
I know, but you said it was the resources that were going to go out and do the report.
No, Geraldine,
not you.
We are now going to a vote, and I'm the chairman of this meeting. You're the chairman of the full council. What I said to you was
Paula did report.
The report would go to resources. I'm not going to go back over it again because you have.
I don't want you to.
No, or you can vote against it, you can abstain. What I'm not going to do is open the discussion in the middle of a vote at this point. That is bad. So those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Those who are against?
None.
And those who abstain?
1.
That's good. I assure you, nobody's going to have anything hid from them. I can really assure you that. I wouldn't like it myself, and it won't happen. I've got the biggest nose possible when it comes to stuff like that, and you will get your chance to look at stuff. Thank you for that. That is a really positive outcome, and you'll see why at a later stage. Right, in which case, we've done that. We've moved on skate park. We've done that. We've done Arthur Skeleton skate park. We've done action group. We've done access town centre manager. Now we're on something less controversial, the pumpkin trail, and less difficult. Are we happy to note that report?
Yeah.
Thank you. And then we move on to market COVID update. Deputy Town Clerk, who's not here. Are you happy, Town Clerk, to give a brief update on that?
Yeah, firstly, apologies for those of you who have noticed that the agenda says there's a written report, which there's not in your agenda pack. So just to update councillors, the markets, before the recent lockdown, markets were already fully COVID compliant with increased space between stalls and queuing areas. We haven't had any complaints or concerns raised by the public at all. During an unannounced inspection by the environmental health officer, they were very happy with all the measures, the social distancing measures in place, and they agreed the street market was a safe place to shop. The one issue they raised was with the card store, and their view at that time was that shouldn't have been operating because they weren't selling what we viewed as essential goods, even though they were selling some stationery newspapers which are allowed. So that stall was closed on that occasion and then replaced with a food store. That stall is now back as of the 5th of December because of the revised Tier 2 restrictions we're now in. The flea market was unable to operate during lockdown, but has restarted. The social distancing measures are in place. The markets are running well with the waiting list for new traders. Unfortunately, due to social distancing, it's been decided to keep the current spacing between stalls, which obviously limits the number of stalls we're allowed to have. And the other thing to say is the market, as the communication strategy group recently discussed, the market manager's done a great job growing the market's social media presence, particularly on Instagram, where we've now got over 4,000 Instagram followers following the market on Instagram, which is really, really good. And Ross has worked really hard at doing that most days.
That's massive.
Any questions?
Any questions? I think that's just excellent news, don't you?
Yep.
Are we going to note that and look forward to a written report at the next meeting?
Yeah.
Is that agreed? And
Agreed.
obviously, you can't write a report if you're not well. And play around the parishes. What I'm really looking for out of this is so we can get on and book it. Fortunately, Buckinghamshire Council is going to carry on doing play around the parishes, and it's a budget from this committee. As Andy well knows, we just book these things, and Terry, we just book these things, and it goes ahead.
Yeah,
Is that agreed?
Great.
Yeah, let's go with it.
Thank you. Item 21, budget review. Is there anything on the first part of the budget review anyone's got any concerns about? Okay, is that none? Okay, I'll take it that we move on to item 2.1, receive the budget forecast for COVID. Well, normally I say, well, we don't know where we are and whatever. Are we happy to look at that that element? Okay, I'm taking that's all right. What I will say to you at 2.1, see the preset elements in 2.1.3. You should look at that because we are allocating £10,000 into COVID recovery fund, and that's going into earmark reserves from this committee. So that money will be there to be able to use to try and do something with a report at a future meeting, how we progress that to actually do something for the town centre. And we're doing that from within budgets and an underspend, and that's in earmark reserves. And are you happy to note that?
Yep.
And that will come back to us with a report, and everyone will be involved in it. But we really don't know what we're going to need to do, and it needs some careful planning. But we are going to have a situation post-COVID that we may need to do some stimulus in the town centre and other things to try and make it just tick and work a bit better. But we don't need to write that today. Councillor Donoghue.
Thank you. I'm not sure what bit this is, if it's because I'm down in the agenda with the accounts. I haven't got the front page in front of me. It's on page 2 and it says 6 draft budget. Are we on that one?
It's in earmark reserves. Okay,
it was the Town in Bloom 4104. It's going up from 7,000 to 10,000 for 2021. I just wondered why there's a £3,000 jump for Town in Bloom. Do we really spend 10 grand on flowers?
Yes.
Okay.
So
that's quite a big jump.
We spend that budget on it, not all on flowers. Town clerk.
So that jump actually happened last year because we're now in 2021.
Okay.
And the reason I think was because we were planning to encourage to put more flower beds into the town, including the stone one, which is the next plan along with cattle pens.
Yes.
Which will, it's not yet March, so we don't have to have done it yet, but we are well on the way to getting it done.
All right, thank you.
It's one of those things, Councillor Donoghue, where we took decisions, but because of COVID, we couldn't prove if we're going to carry on doing it, because that was a budget request at the previous meeting. And when I said quickly, that's what we spend, that's because that's what we spend. Does that set everyone at ease? And we're all happy about putting money towards the town recovery, and we'll all be involved in that. And I'm looking for, something coming back, a report from the officers before it comes to committee, and then we'll do it thereafter. So we don't chew it over, we do something proper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right, with that, we'll move off budgets. I'm trying to do it on 3 bits of stuff here, so I apologise for that. Right, now we're going to be doing twinning. I don't think there's anything.
Sorry, Councillor Slattery. Sorry,
Yeah.
I thought we were still doing 21.3 next. I thought we just done 0.1 and 0.2. We've not done 0.3 yet.
I did. I went all the way down there, and then, but
Okay.
you got. I mean, I'm happy, John. If there's something you want to talk about, let's
Yeah,
go
I'm
back.
just confused about, this is on the page which has the summary of draft budget. The budget goes from 240,000 2021 to 131,000 21-22, and that's a drop of over 100,000. Have I read that wrong?
I think you probably have. I think it's printed wrong. That sounds like a radical thing that we hadn't agreed.
That's what I thought, and I'd scanned down to see where the differences were, and I can't find it.
Well,
I
was reading last year's budget, and we had agreed that it would be pretty much the same. So that I think either we'll get an explanation now, or we'll ask the town clerk to give us a written explanation.
That is clearly incorrect, and thank you, Councillor Harvey, for identifying that. Just let me pull up on the screen to see if I can get it.
That's what you call. That's why we do have councillors. You see, it's called scrutiny. We disagree, and we agree, and we scrutinise things. That's what councillors do. Thank you for that, John. I just looked at the last year's budget and thought everything was the same, and I didn't see that myself. So you're going to just give us a note at the after the meeting what it should be, Paul?
Yeah, it's a calculating error. So all the figures in the overall budget that follow on from that are correct. The summary's added it up wrong. So the correct figures should be
I'm not going to ask you to do it now on the hoof.
Okay. I'll send an email around which
can you just circulate an email, because if you say something now, it's in the public domain, and if that is slightly wrong, then we'll have a question. He was wrong again, and it's not that you were wrong. There's a calculating error and the printing error. You were never wrong in the first place. It's just that John noticed that the figures have been printed wrong. So if you send us an email round, you're happy with that, Councillor Harvey?
Yeah, we're happy.
Yeah.
Let's go with it.
Thank you.
Twinning.
Well done. It's always good. Otherwise, we would have carried on in absolute ignorance, wouldn't we? It would have got shown up when it went to resources, though. That's why you have resources committee. They'd have gone through the budget, and we know they'd have picked it up, don't we? Because of course they would. Right, twinning, which is caused all the problem then. There's nothing going on with twinning, as far as I know. It says it's changed since I spoke to the officers.
Good.
Right, which brings us back to news releases. Now we've done most of the stuff that's been covered throughout. I think we should say that we're going to play around the parishes again. I think we should say that we're going to do that again. I think we should say that do something so people know that we're planning to do all our events on the list of town council events without itemising them, and we'll work with the situation as it is and make decisions as we go along. So we can tell people that we're going to do it. The reason I say that is we've got partners who work with us from Music in the Market, Bandjam, the Spring Fair, and all these people who work with us. We need to show that we're actually out for business. And if it turns out we're not doing business, we need to do a positive thing that we will be out there doing events when possible. And we need to do a positive press release about that. Else they'll think, oh, nothing's going to happen. But it could be in May, we're in such a good situation and the regulations say that we can have music in the market. That'd be fun. I can go out and listen to some music again. You know what I mean? We've got to be positive. Do the committee agree about that?
Yeah.
And as for the play around the parish, a separate one that we're really pleased that Buckinghamshire Council is going to fund play around the parishes. Absolutely. And we will be doing it again, and to let youngsters know it's going to be there in the summer. I think that's enough from that agenda. I don't think we need to do anything on town centre manager unless we think we ought to say that we have recommended to them, or we just let that go through to resources.
I think we should wait for a report on that, Robin.
Yeah.
Go through to resources, and then we'll do, when it comes back from resources, we report after it's agreed. At that point, because it's under our committee responsibility, we'll discuss what we want to say in a press release if it goes through and gets its agreement. It'll come from this committee. Councillor Mahi.
Thank you. I assume that from resources it'll go to full council, and then that's when we should do the release. Press release.
You're quite, either way, Andy, you're quite right. But we need to say where it's coming from and be quite prescriptive in it. But we do make sure that they know that we actually suggested it. That's all I'm saying. And not resources being quite precious, because we'll be playing for it in our part of the precept. With that, news releases we've done. I'll just do on chairman's items. I'm going to do this. There's nothing to do with it. Would it be possible? I understand that we may well have Rabina's son's probably going to be doing the food project again. Is that am I correct, Rabina, that the ambition is that that's going to take place during December again?
As far as I'm aware, yes. They're planning to do, if possible, hot meals and food shopping deliveries. After the success of and the generosity of everyone, local people and businesses over the last half term. So they have been trying to organise that.
And I know that Geraldine was awfully good at making sure that the building was available, but we've got COVID in the build, not COVID in the building, we've got the vaccinations, and that's probably
not in the building.
The vaccinations in the building. So technically you do, because it's in the vaccine, but so that won't be there. But they're hoping to find a site, aren't they? And they're working on that now. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Can through the chair, if there's anything conversations on that, can you come back to the office and town council and see if they can help in any way with any discussions that need to take place? Because last time it was such a good thing, and it's going to, if I read it right online, and please correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be a more broader Christmassy type thing with meals to older people and whatever. So it'd be good if it happens.
I think this time they do want to include, I know it started off with free school meals, but there's so many sections of society which have been affected during the pandemic and before through austerity measures. So, they want to reach out to the elderly, to anyone who's struggling, basically, even if it's just a weekly shop or a Christmas food shop or something, just to tide them over. And even since the last half term, they have been people have been reaching out to them quite regularly, and they're still doing, the odd couple of deliveries every week of a food shop for people.
Yeah. And as I say, please, our officers are always good for knowing contact details and different people. Ask the organisation to contact them if they need some advice. I know I've asked some questions myself, but it's important this goes ahead, because this Christmas there's going to be lots of people who can't, for different reasons, be with their family. And this may be the year that a scheme like this, a meal on Christmas Day, may be all the difference for somebody on Christmas. I know the church will do things, and I know other people will, but I've just mentioned it today because I just felt we should talk about it as it's an event, a situation, and we're all good people, one hopes, and we'd want it to succeed. That's why I mentioned it. Well, thank you for that. And with that positive note, I will say it again. I said it at the beginning of the meeting. as somebody pointed out, I will say it again. Everybody have a good Christmas.
And you.
Before we go, sorry, can we just take the quick picture?
Oh, yes.
Very important, our quick Christmas picture. If everyone can just look at your camera, look a bit festive.
I got my tree in now.
Get my ridiculous headband in shot. This is good practice for our full council photograph, everyone, okay? So I'm going to try it on my iPhone and a screen print. Right. Not in shot. Okay.
Jumpers to the ready.
Okay, and I'm going to try a screen print. Okay, thank you. You'll find this on Facebook at some point.
Not on candid camera.
Yeah,
Thanks, Romina.
All right,
and seriously, thank you for all your contributions tonight. It was a long agenda, and it was much appreciated. Though we may have all discussed things, whatever, it was well appreciated.
Robin.
Kate,
Robin.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to go now and have some dinner.
Thanks,
I hope you all go and a safe journey home.
Bye.
Geraldine, before you go.
Amanda, I did want to have a word with you, but I'll have that later at some point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably like that. So we end the meeting now.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye.